big issue of the day is this bill in Arizona. It would apparently allow businesses to deny service for religious reasons, but that's not really what the bill is about. Basically, here's the story. The backstory here is that we've seen in states across the country a problem where religious business owners are accosted by couples who want to get married, and they are same-sex couples and they want to get married. And religious people have refused to provide them service. The state has stepped in and said you must provide them service after the gay couple sues. This Arizona bill is designed to prevent that type of situation. It's designed to allow a religious business owner not to participate in a gay wedding if he or she does not want to. Now, it's already legal in the state of Arizona for you to discriminate against gays. There is no sexual orientation protection in the state of Arizona. What this is designed to do, is it's designed to create a very specific protection, which is that if you, based on religious principle, do not wish to serve somebody, you should not have to serve somebody. Now, it used to be that this was just considered a basic constitutional right.
Yeah.
Right? This was a basic
no shoes, no shirt, no service.
Right. It's your business. You can serve whoever you want to. You don't have to serve anybody you don't want to. Right.
I guess you could argue like even a no smoking sign might be discriminatory.
Right. All business owners discriminate. In fact, we discriminate on a regular basis against people who can't pay the prices that the businesses wish to charge. Right. If somebody wants to pay you half price for something and you toss them out of the store and you tell them they can't buy it, you're discriminating against them. This whole perspective that your business, your rules began to change in the 1960s because there were a lot of businesses discriminating against blacks. So the Civil Rights Act of 1964 made it illegal on a federal level for you to refuse service to somebody based on race. And that has now been extended, or they're attempting to extend it, to discrimination based on your disapproval of somebody's behavior. Now, race is not the same as behavior.
Absolutely.
You can fully agree that it's wrong and that the government has business preserving the right of black people to visit businesses and still say that the government has no business in telling me who I can and cannot serve based on their behavior, right? Because I don't have to approve. Black is not a behavior, but gay is a behavior. It's not a mindset. I can't read your mind. I don't know if you're gay or not. If you come in and you start making out with your boyfriend, however, that may be and you're a guy, that may be behavior that I don't choose to that I choose not to sanction in my establishment. It may be now
because of your faith. I
actually think that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is an overreach because I think the market cures this stuff. I don't think that the federal government needs to be involved, and I think that it was always a slippery slope to the point where government was going to control who you could and could not allow inside your establishment. By the same token, the Civil Rights Act itself has worked out obviously incredibly well, and so when it comes to that, I'm not going to argue for the repeal of the Civil Rights Act. I am going to argue, however, that if you are a religious person, you should have the right to refuse service to somebody based on your disapproval of the lifestyle that they are leading.
But unfortunately, we've seen in a couple of cases, I think one in New Mexico and then the other one more recently in Oregon, where the court decided in the state of Oregon that a baker refusing to make that cake for that gay couple's wedding was in violation of their civil rights, but they did not acknowledge her decision based on her religious rights.
And by the way, in New Mexico, gay marriage is not legal yet. So they were saying that it was discriminating against a gay couple based on the baker, based on the photographer saying they weren't going to participate in an activity that the state does not recognize as legal. Yeah. So what it's bizarro world. Well, but here's what really underlies all of this. And we'll take your phone calls at 855-785-8255 on whether you think that it is right for the government to be able to tell individual religious people that they must serve gays and lesbians. And not only serve gays and lesbians, but serve same-sex weddings. The folks on the left truly believe that religious people out there are just itching for the opportunity to throw gays and lesbians out of their businesses. There's a columnist named Dean Obadiah. He's on CNN all the time. And he has an article on the Daily Beast today in which he says, if Republicans allow businesses to refuse people in the name of religious freedom, you can expect women, minorities, and others to get the cold shoulder. In other words, religious people are just waiting. They're just itching.
Wait a second.
They're just they can't.
He said what?
That Republicans will throw women, minorities, and others and gays out of their businesses if they're allowed to by law.
Has this guy ever been to church?
Or met a religious person?
Or met me or read the Bible? In my opinion, Judaism and Christianity, so like the whole of the Bible is probably the most pro-women religion out there on the face of the planet.
And by the way, is the converse true also? I have two big questions for folks on the left who agree with this law and think it's a wonderful idea. Yeah. Let's say, I'm an Orthodox Jew. That means that on the 8th day of life, if I have a son, my son will be circumcised.
You circumcise him.
Right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in this country, a lot of atheists in this country, a lot of
even
people.
now in San Francisco, they're saying it's gender mutilation and they want to make it illegal, right?
Correct. And so let's say I walk into a photographer and I say, I want you to witness the Brit Milah of my son. I want you to come and photograph it. And he says, I think that's genital mutilation. I won't do it. Can I now sue and force him to do it? Because if so, this is not America anymore. It really is not. And I have a second question here, too. The folks on the left, they lie on a consistent basis when they say that they don't want to force churches to perform same-sex marriages. Because let me ask, if you can force me to photograph a same-sex marriage, tell me the moral distinction why you can't force a church to perform a same-sex marriage.
Exactly.
Why, if the pastor,
where's the line drawn?
You're basically saying that if a pastor has a side business outside of his particular church in which he performs weddings for pay, now you can force him to perform a same-sex wedding. But if he's inside the church, you can't? So basically religion only extends as far as the four walls of the church?
Which is not what my faith teaches me. It's supposed to extend to my home and my friendships and my family and everything that I do.
The whole point of religion is that it extends to all aspects of your life. And this attempt by the left to curtail it to when you're in church, we'll leave you alone. But if you're out of church, then we can force whatever nonsense we want to force on you. We can force you to violate your own scruples. This is the danger in the United States of America. You do not have a constitutional right not to be offended. You do not have a constitutional right for my service, for me to serve you. I have a constitutional right, however, to freedom of religion. And so I don't understand when this whole script became flipped. It's insane.
Well, and we've talked about now, I guess, 3 different state lawmakers that voted. It was pretty much this bill, SB 1062, was voted down on the party line. It was in the Senate side of the Arizona Senate, and then it went to the House, and everyone along the party line voted for it. Now 3 GOP representatives in the state legislature are walking back their decision. Senator Flake and Senator McCain have come out asking Brewer to veto this.
Because they're pansies.
I'm seeing some stuff on Twitter that after Jan Brewer told CNN reporter that she would, quote, do the right thing, there's some interactions on Twitter literally within the last 5 to 10 minutes where people are saying that they think that she's indeed going to veto the bill. She has until Friday to make a decision.
By the way, the idea that this is separate but equal is nonsense. You know what separate but equal was? It was a government-enforced regime. It was the government that was instituting separate water fountains. You think there was a private business owner who owned the public restrooms? It was the government instituting Jim Crow. Anybody who compares this to Jim Crow does not know anything about Jim Crow. It was Bull Connor, a government employee, turning the hoses and the dogs on the civil rights marchers. It was not private business owners doing that. In fact, this is the beautiful thing about capitalism. If you're discriminatory, if you're mean, if you're nasty, you know what punishes you? The market. You can lead boycotts. In fact, we do it on a regular basis. Honestly, it happens all the time. Al Sharpton has made a career out of doing this. The idea that you don't have power in the market to go after people who are private business owners who discriminate is absolute nonsense. Rob in Santa Clarita, you're on the morning answer with Brian, Ben, and Alicia.
Yeah, first let me say I don't really care if you're gay or not, but why do we spend, on the same token, why do we spend taxpayer dollars in West Hollywood having a gay pride parade? Because we got to have street closures, police there, whatever. And why do we have a gay pride day in Disneyland? We don't have a heterosexual day. We don't have a heterosexual parade. I mean, this is government promoting one sexuality over another.
Listen, if Disney wants to have a gay pride day at Disneyland, I think it goes to Ben's point of it's a capitalistic, people can decide whether or not they then want to go to Disney. But I completely agree. And I think we talked about that recently when we talked about the city of West Hollywood having the rainbow flag on City Hall.
Right.
And how originally the 5 homosexual city councilmen had said, no, we're not going to put it up there because 60% of our constituents do not, call themselves homosexuals. And so we don't want to be representing the minority, but then they, succumbed to pressure, and I guess they kind of changed around the city flag to now include the colors of the gay pride flag. But it was the same thing. And I remember you saying, Ben, how come it's okay for them to have their, backless chaps,
right,
and be walking around in thongs that's sponsored by the government on Gay Pride Parade Day? But if I were, a Roman Catholic and were getting my daughter christened, they wouldn't sponsor that.
Absolutely. Well, the phone line's lighting up here on the Morning Answer at 855-785-8255. Christy in Riverside, you're on the Morning Answer with Brian, Ben, and Alicia. Brian's out this morning. How's it going, Christy?
It's going good. I don't think that any private business owner or service provider should be forced to provide any service to anyone if it violates their own rights. And I don't know why we need to know who's gay. I mean, there's no big movement to put out there who's straight. Who cares who's gay? Why don't they just go on with their lives, live their life the way they want to, and stop expecting special treatment for being different.
Well, Christy, thanks for the call. I mean, and this is one of the broader points that's being asked here is why exactly is the government taking sides in an issue in which it should be neutral? Mm-hmm. Okay, listen, Jews have had a long history in the United States of discrimination. In the 1950s, 1940s, Jews were not allowed into country clubs. Did they sue the country clubs to be allowed in? No, they built Hillsdale, right? They actually built their own country club. They went and started their own country club, and everything was, or Hillside, and everything was fine. I mean, this is Hillcrest. This is the way that it works in the United States of America. When you don't like a private business, you start a competitor and you blow him out of the water in terms of competition. What you don't do is use the government to discriminate against people with whom you disagree. And the moment that you do that, you have now violated the Constitution itself. You do not have a right for your feelings not to be hurt. And it's insane. You read this column by Dean Obadiah, for example, and listen to this. For a moment, imagine you're part of a same-sex couple at a restaurant in Arizona after this law went into effect. The owner walks up to you and in front of other customers announces that you and your partner will not be served simply because you're gay. I can't even imagine the embarrassment and frustration that would cause. So what?
You know what?
Okay, I'm sorry. It sounds like the restaurant owner is a jerk. Just because the restaurant owner is a jerk doesn't mean he's doing something illegal. People are jerks all the time.
And also, I think that it's unfair to talk about to hold that level of discrimination up to the same level of discrimination that black people experienced in the United States in the 50s and the 60s. It is not the same. And we all go through some form of discrimination in our life. I mean, I'm a breastfeeding mom. I can't just go breastfeed wherever I want. There's rules about that. Right?
Correct.
But I'm not going to, boycott or get all pissy and ask for a law that then says, well, I should be able to, whip it out anywhere I want.
You don't have a right in the United States of America to have it your way. Okay, this isn't McDonald's. You don't have a right to have it your way. You do have a right to practice your religion in the United States of America. Del in Paris, you're on the Morning Answer with Brian, Ben, and Alicia. How's it going, Del?
It's good. You all have opened quite a few vistas, and I find myself in an interesting position. I grew up in the 60s. My parents were from Tennessee. They experienced Jim Crow. I understood what the issues lay behind that, but I've also heard from older blacks who said that the passage of the Civil Rights Act created a negative impact on black business.
Which, by the way, is true, Del. Actually, if you look at the Civil Rights Act, the growth of black business and the black middle class actually declined after that because blacks were starting their own businesses to serve other black folks.
Exactly. Now, taking that forward to this, I've had conversation after conversation. I am a seminary student, and I looked at this and I said, look, first of all, why would a person go to a church that's not their church and ask to be led by them? That alone should raise a red flag.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I have said to gay folk, I said, look, first of all, I know whether you'll admit it or not, that this is going to be used to force somebody to do something simply because. I think I'd be willing to bet that couple that went to that baker knew it was a Christian.
That's exactly right.
Bakery for that reason.
And Del, thanks for the call. That's exactly right. They knew going in what the situation was, which is why they went to that bakery in the first place. Here's the big question for you today. Really, here's the big question. Who's more of a jerk? Who's more of a jerk? The business owner who discriminates against somebody on the basis of sexual orientation, or the person who thinks that nobody anywhere has the right to disagree with them on the issue of sexual orientation.
And then seeks out a business that they know they're going to get attention from and
uses the government as a club to beat businesses into alignment with their own ideology. Who's a bigger threat to the freedom of Americans? The single business owner who says you can't come into my restaurant, or the person who says no restaurant anywhere can discriminate in any way that I find objectionable? We'll talk about that question and take your calls at 855-785-8255. It's 822.
Hold on tight. This is The Morning Answer with Brian Whitman, Ben Shapiro, and Alicia Krause.
This is The Morning Answer with Brian, Ben, and Alicia. Brian is out this morning. I'm going to bang through some calls here because we have hot phone lines on this Arizona bill that would protect religious business owners from essentially government discrimination, the government forcing you to serve people who are gay and forcing you to serve homosexual weddings. Because here's the truth. No religious person that I know or have ever heard of, really, they may exist, I'm sure they're out there, would refuse service to a guy just because he thinks he's gay. You might refuse to serve a gay wedding, but honestly, I don't know a single business owner who, if a guy walked in a gay pride t-shirt, would refuse to serve that person.
And for the record, I have family members that have like a vacation rental business, and I think that they would refuse to rent out a room to an unmarried heterosexual couple if they were even to refuse that and to refuse a homosexual couple.
Dave
you know what
in
I mean?
Burbank.
Like for a lot of Christians, I think that those two are equivalent.
Agreed. Dave in Burbank, you're on the Morning Answer with Brian Benton and Alicia. Go for it, Dave.
Hey, how you doing, you guys? I really enjoy the show.
Thanks.
Hey, my view on this, and it's been this way for some time, just in a broader sense, is to me this is about power and control. Sex happens to be the vehicle, but this is really about the old human nature adage of how special interest group, in this case like GLAAD or the gay agenda, has suddenly become a force, and having politicians, even unions in their hip pocket, so to speak, has allowed them to garner a huge voice in the political arena. And now what it's causing almost a never-ending legislative, political, all kinds of things to change.
Yeah, Dave, I certainly agree that it's about power and control, and thanks so much for the call. There's no question that there's a group of people in this country who feel that the government should be empowered to violate your freedom of religion just because they say so and disagree with how your religion is exercised. John in Brentwood, you're on the Morning Answer with Brian Benton and Alicia. Go for it, John.
Hey, Ben. Hey, Alicia. I was wondering, how's the government going to enforce the baker to bake a cake and the photographer to take photographs at a gay wedding that he doesn't approve of? I mean, if the baker's heart isn't in it and he bakes a substandard cake, is he then going to get sued or thrown in jail because the cake isn't as good as it could have been?
And John, this is a great question. This is actually the next issue on the agenda is the quality of service objection. And thanks for the call. There's a quality. This is going to be the next thing because people are going to passively object. There will be civil disobedience. Sure, I'll service your gay wedding. Sorry, all the photos came back and none of them came out.
Yeah, they're really bad.
That will be the next step.
Or something.
Or people will just lose their businesses, which is what happened to this bakery in Oregon that basically shut down rather than engaging in what it considered to be sinful behavior. James in Hollywood, you're on the Morning Answer with Brian Benton and Alicia. Go for it, James.
Hi. Well, my question is, where does it stop? If I own a slaughterhouse and it's a concept, but I can call up a PETA person and have them come and take a photograph of my slaughterhouse, it's highly offensive to them. It's not religious, but it's their personal belief.
That's right, James. And this of course is the entire point. And thanks so much for your call. This is the point that we can't live together in a society when we are attempting to force people who disagree with us to agree with us. You can't do that. That's not a free society. The essence of a free society is I get to live the way I want to live. You get to live the way you want to live. I don't approve of your gay marriage. Well, so what? It doesn't matter. This is America. You can ignore me. I can ignore you. The only way we're ever going to be able to get along with conflicting views is if we acknowledge the sovereignty of the individual and we acknowledge that I am sovereign in my own territory just as you are sovereign in your own territory.